Berlin Tunnel. In the 1950s, the CIA and MI6 had a bold idea. If you couldn't crack Soviet codes, why not dig under them? So in September 1954, they began carving a tunnel from West Berlin into the Soviet sector. The goal was to tap into the phone lines linking Moscow with Soviet military headquarters in East Germany. This wasn't a minor side project. The tunnel stretched hundreds of meters underground, reinforced like a Cold War subway line. The Americans provided heavy machinery and funding, while the British supplied their Vienna-based wiretap specialists. For nearly a year, Western spies listened to thousands of calls covering troop movements, logistics, and strategy. But there was a catch. The Soviets already knew. George Blake, a trusted British officer who was secretly a KGB mole, had revealed the plan before the digging even started. Rather than expose it immediately, Moscow allowed the operation to continue. Some historians suggest they deliberately let lower-value information pass through while keeping critical secrets protected. In April 1956, East German workers discovered the tunnel during cable maintenance. The West was humiliated, the Soviets celebrated, and the project became one of the Cold War's most expensive failures. For NATO, the lesson was clear. Millions spent on cutting-edge spycraft could be undone by a single insider leak. From then on, European services pressed for stricter compartmentalization and tighter rules when coordinating with American partners. Gladio networks. After World War II, NATO and the CIA prepared for what they feared most: a Soviet invasion of Western Europe. Their answer was to build secret, stay-behind armies that would resist occupation from within. Beginning in 1948, weapons were hidden across 15 countries, and ordinary-looking citizens were quietly trained to become guerrilla fighters if the Red Army ever crossed the border. Over time, however, these networks did not remain purely hypothetical. Parliamentary inquiries decades later revealed that in countries such as Italy, parts of the stay-behind structure became entangled in domestic politics. Some investigators argued that elements may have cooperated with far-right groups and were linked to episodes of extremist violence during the 1970s and 80s. These allegations remain debated, but many Italians believed secret networks played a role in bombings that shook the country. The existence of Gladio was officially confirmed in 1990, when Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti acknowledged the program. The revelation dramatically changed NATO's image. Not just a shield against Moscow, but also an organization accused of undermining democracy from within. The scandal triggered a wave of public distrust. Parliaments launched investigations, courts opened cases, and governments rewrote oversight rules. What had started as an anti-Soviet insurance policy became a cautionary tale. In some cases, the greatest risk to democracy came not from foreign armies, but from the shadows within its own system. Italy election operations. Right after World War II, Washington feared that Italy, home to one of the strongest communist movements in Europe, might vote itself into Moscow's orbit. In March 1947, President Harry Truman authorized the CIA's very first major political operation: prevent the communists from winning Italy's upcoming election. Money soon began flowing. Millions of dollars supported the Christian Democrats, while propaganda campaigns spread across the country. Letters mailed to Italian households warning of Soviet domination, radio broadcasts highlighting the risks of Marxism, and forged documents circulated to damage Communist Party leaders. Italian-American groups were also encouraged to pressure relatives back home, creating what historians call the first transatlantic election campaign. On Election Day, April 1948, the results were decisive. The Christian Democrats secured nearly half the vote, while the left-wing Popular Democratic Front fell far behind. In Washington, officials viewed this as proof that financial backing and targeted messaging could decisively influence a European democracy. And the efforts did not end there. Through the 1950s and 60s, the CIA continued channeling support to Italian politicians, while Marshall Plan aid was often tied to anti-communist themes. Alcide de Gasperi, the Christian Democratic leader, even appeared on the cover of Time magazine as the face of America's strategy. The consequences lasted for decades. Italy remained under center-right governments for almost 50 years, and leftist coalitions did not gain national power until 1996. By then, the Cold War was already history. The operation became a template for U.S. involvement in Allied politics, showing how elections could be influenced far beyond the ballot box. Greek junta. On April 21, 1967, tanks rolled through Athens as a group of colonels led by Georgios Papadopoulos seized power just weeks before scheduled elections. Drawing on NATO's contingency plan, Prometheus, they imposed martial law, suspended rights, and rounded up thousands of suspected leftists. Washington kept its support as long as Greece stayed in NATO, while European allies imposed sanctions and suspended Greece from the Council of Europe. The dictatorship lasted 7 years, collapsing in 1974 after a failed coup in Cyprus triggered a Turkish invasion. Many Greeks believed the United States had indirectly backed the colonels, fueling lasting anti-American sentiment. The episode reshaped both Greek politics and Western intelligence policy, prompting new oversight rules and limiting U.S. cooperation with authoritarian regimes. Solidarity support. By the early 1980s, Poland was under martial law. General Wojciech Jaruzelski sent tanks into the streets, and the Solidarity trade union was pushed into hiding. For Washington, this was a chance to weaken Soviet control from within the Eastern Bloc. In 1982, President Ronald Reagan approved a secret CIA program to support Solidarity. Through American unions, Catholic networks, and European labor groups, about $20 million were funneled into the movement. Printing presses, radios, and typewriters crossed borders, fueling underground newspapers and leaflets that spread hand-to-hand despite the risk of arrest. The Polish secret police raided safe houses, seized materials, and detained activists, but support networks kept Solidarity alive. A crucial figure was Colonel Ryszard Kuklinski, a senior officer in the Polish General Staff, who secretly passed information to the CIA before defecting to the United States in 1981. By 1989, Solidarity re-emerged legally and won elections that signaled the collapse of communist rule in Poland and soon across Eastern Europe. For the West, it was proof that steady funding and quiet cooperation could help opposition movements outlast an authoritarian regime. Italy's CIA kidnapping scandal. On February 17, 2003, Hassan Mustafa Osama Nasser, better known as Abu Omar, walked out of his mosque in Milan. Minutes later, he was seized by CIA operatives working with Italian military intelligence. Despite holding political asylum in Italy, he was bundled into a van, driven to Aviano Air Base, and flown through Germany to Cairo. There, he spent years in detention, later reporting that he was subjected to torture. The operation was controversial even inside the CIA. The station chief in Milan initially objected, warning about the likely political fallout. Headquarters in Langley overruled him, and the rendition went ahead. What followed became one of the most public counterintelligence controversies in CIA history. Italian prosecutor Armando Spataro built a case using phone records, hotel bills, and credit card transactions. The agents had been careless, using real names and leaving a clear trail across Milan. Evidence showed that dozens of Americans and Italian collaborators had taken part. Abu Omar managed to call his wife from Egypt, describing his treatment. Those calls later became part of the court record. Italian judges eventually convicted more than 20 CIA agents and several Italian officials in absentia, ordering prison sentences and compensation for Abu Omar and his family. The European Court of Human Rights also ruled against Italy for permitting the abduction, reinforcing international law against torture and secret renditions. The case marked a turning point. Even in the shadowy world of counterterrorism, European courts demonstrated they could hold powerful intelligence services to account. Black sites in Eastern Europe. After the September 11th attacks, the CIA launched its high-value detainee program. Part of that effort involved secret prisons established across Eastern Europe. Poland hosted one inside an intelligence training facility, while Romania provided government buildings, and Lithuania allowed a site to operate near its capital's airport. The CIA invested large sums to modify these facilities with reinforced cells, surveillance systems, and specialized equipment. For years, the locations remained secret. Human rights organizations gradually pieced together the evidence using flight records, financial trails, and testimony from former detainees later transferred to Guantanamo Bay. By the mid-2000s, the existence of so-called black sites in Europe was widely acknowledged. Parliamentary investigations in Europe concluded that torture and unlawful detentions had taken place on European soil. The revelations triggered public outrage and political scandal. The European Court of Human Rights eventually issued landmark rulings against Poland, Romania, and Lithuania. Each was found responsible for enabling the CIA's detention program and ordered to compensate victims. The scandal reshaped counterterrorism cooperation between the United States and Europe. Governments introduced stricter oversight of intelligence agencies and reinforced the absolute ban on torture in international law. Defector exfil and handling. During the Cold War, Cities like Vienna, Berlin, and Rome became key escape routes for defectors fleeing the Soviet bloc. The CIA, working with European intelligence services, developed networks of safe houses, forged documents, and covert transport routes to help extract officers, scientists, and spies along with their families. It was a high-stakes game. Moles inside Western agencies exposed some of these operations in the 1980s, leading to arrests and severe consequences for those caught in the East. But when exfiltration succeeded, they provided the West with valuable intelligence and reinforced cooperation between American and European services. These missions also influenced the creation of modern witness protection and resettlement programs, showing that even in espionage, rescuing people could be as strategically important as gathering secrets.